If there was one physical subject, one material subject that we should focus on, in my opinion, it is very clear that the head of the snake is the financial system. We can argue till the end of time about who runs the world. Is it the Jesuits? Is it the reptilians? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Freemasons? We can go on and on and on and on about this. But I don't think it is reasonable to even begin arguing about the mechanism that is used to exert this control. The mechanism is finance. The whole point of finance is to indebt, otherwise to enslave. What is a mortgage? I mean, what does that stand for? It's a death grip. So when you get a mortgage, you have a death grip held over you because you are in debt. You don't even own the house. The bank owns the house that loaned you the money to buy the house, unless you're fortunate enough to have all the money to buy it outright. And even then, you can be taxed by the government, and if you fail to keep up with those taxes, the government can then take it from you. The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance. With the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take, they have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior. We are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, pedophilia, corrupt moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. We reward the pedophiles, we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all, and usually we compromise them under this system in terms of maybe a videotape. Maybe Barack Obama is gay. Maybe we have videotape of him having sex with another man, or perhaps some other acts that may be not so popular amongst many of the electorate. Or maybe we have videos of political leaders having sex with little boys or little girls. If I was in charge of the world and I was a psychopath and completely drunk on my own power, you can bet damn sure that's what I would do. I wouldn't allow anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised. When you have an infinite supply of money, you can do this. Take that supply of money away, take that power back, put it in the hands of the people, get rid of fractional reserve banking, which is an obscenity in itself. Listen to the lessons of Jesus Christ if you're a Christian who got really pissed off when he went to the temple and he saw what the money changers were doing. Let's take back control of the issuance of money, and not just on a national level. I'm happy to see in Denmark that you have your own currency, you don't have the euro, but on every country's level, they should be issuing their own currency in a transparent, non-usury based way in which it really, truly benefits the people. And in that way, we can literally free ourselves of the banking debt which is drowning us all, and we can stop scrambling for the crumbs from the table of these filthy rich psychopaths and live in a state of abundance just by changing this one thing. And I'm not just talking about abundance for Western nations who have an artificially inflated value with their currencies. We all in the West are guilty of having that reward while the rest of the world is sucking on it. Every nation in the world can use a sensible financial policy to liberate themselves, to have world-class education, infrastructure, everything that a healthy society would require can be had in the worst, most corrupt African country, in any part of the world. We can all have that if we simply change that one thing. John F. Kennedy did that about 6 months before he was taken out. He issued United States notes as opposed to Federal Reserve notes. I can assure you the powers that be knew the power of that act, and they took him right out. So the bottom line is, if we as people understand this very simple principle, just this one thing, change this one thing, we can solve every other problem you can name. I don't care what the problem is. I can bring it back to the financial system and an infinite supply of money for a bunch of psychopaths who are running the world, as opposed to an abundant supply of money for all of us. So in that sense, I'm very optimistic. This is not rocket science. I am not the smartest guy in the room. We can all understand this. And as soon as we do, we can exercise the same power that we had, but relinquished, and we can have a future for ourselves and our children. There's a lot to be optimistic about, quite frankly.
In Israel, they've outlawed DNA testing. Why is that? Because it would prove that the Palestinians are of the land, and that those who came there to create the so-called Jewish state do not have any blood ties to the land at all. Fact. So we've got what Jesus referred to, those who say they are Jews, but they are not. That's a quote from Jesus. They are the, quote, synagogue of Satan. Is that anti-Semitic? Well, let's look at the behavior of the Jewish state in Gaza and the West Bank. And let's talk about the tortures. I mean, it's almost impossible to say this without getting an R rating, but we are talking about red-hot metal rods being inserted in the rectums of the prisoners, which are Palestinians. And I know this from when I lived there. Every single Palestinian I talked to who had been incarcerated had been tortured. They're not exaggerating. This is just normal. And now that we see these red-hot metal rods being inserted in the most ungodly places, literally killing people this way and paralyzing them, and then raping all of the children and the women and the men, I think Jesus was right. And if Jesus were here today, he would be in prison with me for anti-Semitism. Literally. That's how much power this 0.02% of the human population has. And yet they fill the executive branch of Joe Biden, the Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. You know, it is the most disgusting state of affairs. And that doesn't even get into Joseph Biden touching kids inappropriately, and we can sit there and watch it. I mean, my God, what has happened to my birth nation? It has been completely and totally subverted by an enemy inside the gate.
He has ignored the fact that the Palestinians have been treated as subhumans for many decades now. He has ignored the fact that basically he is giving the same rights of self-defense to the aggressor. The aggressor, when he invades and steals a nation, does not have the right of self-defense. Those that are being violated, those whose land is being stolen, those whose families are being murdered, they have the right of self-defense. It is not self-defense when you have the fourth largest military in the world with high-tech weaponry of the highest order, when you have a military that has total air superiority. There is no air defenses, there is no air force, there is no navy, there is no army to speak of. That is not self-defense. And how many rockets have killed people in Israel? It's hardly more than a handful. And ultimately, this is the only thing they have to fight back with. If they did have weapons to fight back with, I can tell you the cowardly Israeli nation would never stand a chance in the face of an equally armed Palestinian resistance, because they would destroy Israel in a heartbeat if there was a fair fight. But there is no fair fight. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, basically. And you talk about entire families that have been wiped out. The Samudi family lost 29 members in one go. Another family lost 25 members in one go. We're talking a child as young as 9 months, 3 pregnant women in one home, so that Israel can target one individual. It is a disgusting, criminal state, Israel. It is involved in organ trafficking, blood diamonds, sex slavery, weapons trading, passing on nuclear secrets, you name it. It is the ultimate criminal state, and it is treating the Palestinians for many decades now as less than dogs. These are the facts, and nothing will change these facts, no matter how many prostitutes get on the television and spout their talking points handed directly to them from the UK, US governments, and other mainstream media, which are nothing more than warmongers pretending to be truth tellers.
A businessman named Larry Silverstein. And you have set your sights on acquiring some of the most expensive real estate in the world, specifically the World Trade Center complex with its crown jewels known as the Twin Towers. However, there's a bit of a problem. The Twin Towers were full of cancer-causing asbestos, and the cost estimates for removal of the asbestos range from the low billions to the tens of billions. Far, far more than the outdated, half-empty Twin Towers were worth. Indeed, the Twin Towers were such a liability that the Port Authority of New York had been desperately seeking a way to demolish them since 1990. But the cost of doing so prevented them from doing this because the toxic asbestos was extremely difficult and dangerous to remove. On May 14th, 2001, 4 months before 9/11, the Port Authority lost a lawsuit that meant it was on the hook to remove that asbestos. The head of the Port Authority was Louis Eisenberg, and he personally oversaw the privatization that led to Larry Silverstein and Frank Lowy obtaining the 99-year lease for the towers on July 24th, 2001, just 6 weeks before 9/11. But Silverstein demanded
and got $3.5 billion worth of insurance payable in cash if the towers were destroyed. Now, the fact that Silverstein was close friends with Benjamin Netanyahu, or that he skipped his daily breakfast at the Windows on the World restaurant located on the 107th floor of the North Tower on 9/11, or that his son and daughter also happened to be unexpectedly absent on 9/11, is all just amazing good fortune, we are told.
In the days before.
Than we think, you know. It's unfortunate, but this has happened to the Jews. It happened in Spain, it's happened in Germany, it's happening, and now it's going to happen in America if these people don't start behaving. It may be they have a death wish. You know, that's been the problems with our Jewish friends for centuries.
Well, they've always been, through the Bible at least, God's timepiece, and He has judged them from generation to generation, and yet used them, and they've kept their identity.
You see, the Bible makes a distinction, Mr. President, between two groups of Jews. One is called the synagogue of Satan. There are two different kinds. And those people, in the latter days, it's called the remnant of God's people, which will be Jewish people. And then there's the synagogue of Satan. And nearly all of your religious deceptions in the latter days, what the Bible speaks, latter days will be 1,000 years, what they call the synagogue of Satan. In other words, they are energized by a supernatural power called the devil. This is what the Bible teaches, whether you believe it or don't believe it. This is the biblical teaching, and this is what I believe. And I believe that they have a strange brilliance about them. They're smart, and they are energized, in my judgment, by a supernatural power.
Well, also they do something else. They're not smart.
And you see, of course, Hitler didn't. They had a stranglehold on Germany, on the banking of Germany, on everything in Germany, and the media. They had the whole thing, you see. But he went about it wrong. But this stranglehold has got to be broken, or this country is going to go down the drain.
You believe that?
Yes, sir.
I can't ever say it, but I believe it.
No, but if you get elected the second time, you might be able to do something. Whether we like it or not, everybody thinks of you as conservative, and then when you lean a little bit in that direction toward the sociological thing is the big thing.
It's all right.
What's that?
It's all right to lean in that direction.
You have to, or the whole thing will be closed to you. You know, I mean, I don't care how conservative. I'm sure I'm more conservative than you are. At least you told me that one time, and I think that's true. But I have to lean a little bit. You know, I go and I keep friends with Mr. Rosenthal at the New York Times and people of that sort, you know. And not all the Jews, but a lot of the Jews are great friends of mine. They swarm around me and they're friendly to me because they know that I'm friendly to Israel. But they don't know how I really feel about what they're doing to this country, and I have no power, no way to handle them. But I would stand up if you know, under proper circumstances.
And I will say, absolutely 100%, without reservation, I support the right of self-defense without any doubt. I would be involved myself in violent resistance if I were a citizen of Palestine or Iraq or Afghanistan. And if I were a citizen of the United States or Britain and someone from halfway around the world came into my country and started stealing my land and killing my family, guess what? I would defend my country as well. So, I absolutely 100% defend the right of self-defense, and I will never shy away from that. I will not join the long list of embarrassments who condemn terrorism while forgetting to acknowledge that the biggest terrorist on the planet is the United States government.
Hamas doesn't recognize the right of Israel to exist.
You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like the African National Congress and Nelson Mandela refusing to accept apartheid and recognize apartheid. I say that Israel, if it wants to be a genuine partner in any kind of peace, needs to destroy its whole ideology of Zionism. Zionism that makes other people goyim, who do not deserve to be in the Holy Land. That's the real problem. If Israel will embrace every people, including Palestinians, equally, human rights respected across the board, then I would challenge Hamas to change its charter and say we will acknowledge Israel. But until that time, I see no difference between Nelson Mandela and Hamas in refusing to accept apartheid or the Zionist Israeli state.
I'm against war. I have been against war for 3 decades. I only support war in the case of self-defense, which is why I have said, and why I'm on bail, and why I am a supposed hate speaker,
and why I have been accused of supporting a prescribed group, because I shall say it again right here. You didn't have to wait long to the interview to hear Ken say something nobody else will say. I have nothing but love and respect for my brothers and sisters in Palestine and all oppressed nations who refuse to accept the unacceptable, who will not lie down, and who will fight with whatever weapons they have at their disposal against an overwhelming enemy which has the latest weapons and technology, including 2,000-pound bombs supported by my bird nation, the United States of America, 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on buildings, burying men, women, and children under the rubble to the point that we don't know the death count in Gaza yet. Love and respect to my men and women family members out there who may call themselves Muslims, but at the end of the day, they serve God.